As some of you may know, I've been playing through every Zelda game in the order of release in order to gather evidence to support or disprove parts of the Zelda timeline. Recently, I just played through Ocarina of Time, and although I'm still working on that video, or the link is in the description, I wanted to make a quick video for a theory that I came up with that just doesn't quite fit anywhere in the video. And it's about everyone's favorite dungeon in all of Zelda, the Water Temple. With that said, spoilers ahead. So while playing through Ocarina of Time, you'll come across some fast travel zones early in the game. These zones give Link access to travel between the three main areas of the game pretty quickly before you get access to the dungeon warping as an adult. Two of the three warp zones are from either Goron City or Zora's Domain to the Lost Woods. These fast travel zones are really neat not just because they work on a gameplay perspective, but they also work in lore as these 3 points are all very spiritually connected as they all protect the spiritual stones. However, there is one exception to these warp zones in between Zora's Domain and Lake Hylia. But even then, there's a strongly implied spiritual connection, and I really want to explore that more in this video. But before we can do that, we first need to get the ability to dive extra deep with the Silver Scale. And this helps us travel to the bottom of Zora's Domain and take that spiritual shortcut. Immediately upon entering Lake Hylia in this way, we're flanked on either side by these tall, ceremonial pillars with the symbol of the Zora people. But do these pillars really have any significance? Where else do we see them in game? Well, actually, we see them right next to their spiritual guardian, Jabu Jabu. I don't think I need to go into why this area in particular is sacred, but seeing as this great fish is tended to personally by the princess, and it's also well secluded behind where the king likes to sit all day, I think it's safe to say he's a very sacred idol, probably about on par with the Great Deku Tree. The pillars, although in disarray now, if continued, would lead directly to the Water Temple. And I think this is a really cool touch, almost like a sacred highway of sorts. So let's go through there and to the Water Temple. Once entered, the main challenge of the Water Temple is navigating the verticality of its rooms by swimming down or using the iron boots and changing the water level to unlock different doors and new paths. This is where the majority of the criticism comes in, as if you're not playing the 3DS remake with very clearly marked paths, the temple becomes a sort of jumbled mess that you can easily get lost in. Upon entering the midway boss chamber, the Shinto temple in an underwater cave-esque scene completely drops. Instead, we're in a reflecting pond with a small tree in the middle and a pagoda on the far side. The fog that surrounds this room makes it seem like we're outside. Passing over the island, we might notice that Link's reflection is no longer at his feet. Instead, we find the doors locked, and we turn around to see a faint shadow on the island. It's our job to defeat this shadow in order to progress. It's really worth mentioning here that the magic itself appears nearly identical to the final boss battle in Zelda 2. And if you've seen my theory on that, this isn't necessarily evil magic. It's magic that's designed to test something in the person that it's cast on. Once we beat the shadow version of ourselves, we're able to get the long shot, which lets us progress to the boss room. In the boss's room, we find Morpha, a boss fairly similar to the other bosses that we fought so far in the game, one that's been clearly put here by Ganondorf. But let's look at the path to the boss and also the boss's room. See, we see the path to the boss's room nearly as soon as we enter the temple, and it's the goal from minute 1. Once we're able to conquer ourselves via Shadow Link, we can use our new tool to ascend the platforms and enter a large room with a big pool in it and a few spikes around the outside. This boss chamber always stuck out to me as a kid because it's so different than any of the other boss rooms in the game. It's just a pool. It's got tiled floors and, in the Nintendo 64 version, very golden gilded wall. While in the 3DS version, they're still very opulent looking, but they're mirrors or mirror-like structures. And all this really got me thinking, what challenges are there really in the Water Temple? Well, of course there's monsters, there's a few in here and a few in there, but there's nothing we haven't really seen elsewhere outside of the world, and if Ganondorf didn't add them here, all the monsters that we find could be something that I could see weaseling their way in, as insects are tend to do. This is the natural environment for urchins and tektites. Like are about the same. We do find a couple of those, but even so, it's just slime. It makes sense that they want to be in somewhere that's deep and dingy and wet, like a cave. And let's talk about these spikes. They're everywhere in the game. So I don't think that this is anything new, and I'm kind of working on a theory to say that Ganondorf's main magical ability is architecture. Let's just all take a second and see if we can remove these in our heads. Remove the spikes and remove the monsters except for Shadowland. And what do we have? I think we have a sort of test or miniature initiation at either becoming an adult in the Zora culture or becoming a warrior in the Zora culture. Either way, those two things are something I think we can argue about in the comments, because I don't think those details matter quite as much as what it is the Zora are actually testing for. I believe that the water temple to the Zora is that test meant to challenge young Zora as they pass the threshold into adulthood, specifically by challenging the three things that the primary religion of Hyrule emphasizes more than anything else: courage, wisdom, and power. Imagine, if you will, a young Zora coming of age, always knowing about the tests, but never quite knowing the details, as they're a closely guarded secret among those who have passed. This is also something that's very common in the real world as a sort of coming of age, where the adult population or the in-crowd has a bit of secret knowledge that is special just for them. Something that makes it all the more special when someone who's young reaches that level of maturity where they're able to take on that secret and thus enter the in-crowd. Courage is the first quality that they have to find within themselves to progress. First, diving deep under the water and hopefully coming out the other side, all the way on the opposite side of Hyrule, and then entering the temple with an unknown challenge that awaits them. I'd be pretty scared to do that. I don't know about you. I mean, that sounds pretty terrifying to me, and really like somebody would need a lot of courage to accomplish those things. Continuing on, this young Zora is also going to need a lot of wisdom in order to solve the puzzles in the temple, as they struggle raising and lowering the water and searching ways to proceed. And in this instance, there's no monsters. Instead, the challenge is entirely focused on their ability to learn from their surroundings and apply what they've learned. I would also take this a step further and say that the blocks and switches with the Gerudo symbol in them probably don't exist in this time area. I would argue those were also added by Ganon. But that's a theory for my Ganon is an architecture wizard video, which I guess that's coming out sometime. In this hypothetical version, that also helps my theory because there is no test of strength or test of power at this point. That, instead, is going to come when they reach the final challenge of the dungeon and open up a door to find themselves a misty room with a single tree in the center. See, at this point, there is no Morpha. We'll get to what's in Morpha's room in a second, but the final challenge of the dungeon would, in this case, the shadow version of the young Zora themselves. And much like we have to fight our inner darkness, the young Zora would have to fight their inner darkness, demonstrating their true power within and their true inner strength by being able to vanquish the darkness inside them. With that, you can use the tool that you find in the last room, the long shot, to finally ascend and enter a celebratory chamber. Water is commonly seen in most religions and in media as a sign of either birth or rebirth. And in this case, I believe that's the purpose of this final room. A gilded pool where you can bathe in sacred water and emerge now as either a respected warrior or even just emerge as an adult, having proven yourself to embody these three sacred character traits of power, wisdom, and courage. And just in case I don't have you convinced just yet, allow me to point out how we even change the water level in the first place. It's not with any levers or buttons or any sort of mechanical devices. It's by playing the song known as Zelda's Lullaby with our ocarina, a sacred song that embodies the Triforce both in its notes, up and right, left, but also in its lore, as it's a song passed down through the royal lineage directly from the goddess Hylia. And now, having used this holy song to traverse the dangerous and unknown temple and conquer the darkness within yourself, you can emerge from the temple a hero, a warrior, a respected member of society, maybe even the king. Perhaps this isn't something that's undergone by any normal Zora. Perhaps this is something only for the royalty. That way they can prove their line and that they're deserving of the crown, the right to rule. And honestly, I really love that. I think it fleshes out the Zora as a people much more than they already were. And at least so far, it really makes sense with the architecture being very Shinto-based, being very spiritual, as this whole environment being a rite of passage. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments down below, and even if you think this is a stupid theory, I would really appreciate any kind of feedback, especially if it's debunking my theory. Also, if you did like the theory and you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts on all things Zelda and other things, consider checking out my other videos. I have so much more Zelda content on the way, just for you. And if not, I still hope that you find what you're looking for.